I deposited money into my account at the bank. I transferred funds into my financial account at the banking institution. The opinions of the majority and the minority clashed. The perspectives of the dominant group and the minority faction were in conflict. He can't save money because he is a spendthrift. He fails to accumulate wealth due to his extravagant spending habits. My hair is sparse, so I think I'll soon be bald. My thinning hair suggests that baldness is imminent. Children rely completely on their parents. Youngsters are entirely dependent on their guardians. The fruit of this tree is edible, so feel free to eat it. The produce from this plant is consumable, so you may ingest it without hesitation. She started to make sarcastic comments about my painting. She began delivering ironic remarks regarding my artwork. The crime is condemned, but the criminal says not to condemn him. The offense is denounced, yet the perpetrator pleads for absolution. He used subterfuge to pass the exam but got caught. He resorted to deceit to succeed in the assessment, but was discovered. There was an obvious piece of evidence that he was the criminal. A conspicuous proof indicated his culpability. He bribed the politician and won the construction project through bribe. He secured the infrastructure contract by corrupting a government official. During the priest's sermon, the murderer felt pangs of conscience. While listening to the clergyman's discourse, the assassin experienced moral remorse. I learned differentiation and integration in mathematics class. I studied calculus concepts such as derivatives and integrals in my mathematics course. He carries his English dictionary like an ornament. He totes his English lexicon as if it were a mere embellishment. They required a warrant when introducing the new machine. They mandated official authorization before implementing the advanced apparatus. We set the chair upright that had fallen over in the wind. We repositioned the toppled seat to its proper stance after the gust. Hedgehogs and squirrels are a type of rodent. Hedgehogs and squirrels belong to a classification of small gnawing mammals. Winning the Olympic gold medal was truly an honored achievement. Securing the Olympic championship was a profoundly prestigious accomplishment. A senator from the Republican Party was nominated as the presidential candidate. A legislator from the conservative faction was officially selected as a contender for the presidency. Preheat the oven before baking the cookies. Warm up the oven in advance to ensure optimal baking conditions. Curly hair tends to tangle with each other. Wavy locks naturally intertwine with one another. The light bulb suddenly flickered, so I replaced it myself. The illumination device momentarily fluctuated, prompting me to replace it personally. The suspects obstructed the investigation by destroying evidence. The accused individuals impeded the inquiry through evidence tampering. Turn the key anti-clockwise to open it. Rotate the key counterclockwise to unlock it. The hospital was filled with people diseased from the flu. The medical facility was overcrowded with individuals afflicted by influenza. The car starts to depreciate immediately after I buy it. The vehicle's value begins to decline instantly upon purchase. The doctor diagnosed the hospitalized emergency patient. The physician assessed the critical inpatient's condition. The pirates were rowing the boat with a paddle. The marauders propelled the vessel using an oar. Korea will become a hub for global finance and communications. South Korea is poised to emerge as a nexus for international economics and telecommunications. The martyr showed fortitude until the end. The sacrifice demonstrated unwavering resilience to the very last moment. The ballerina danced with grace. The ballet performer exhibited elegance through her movements. This restaurant keeps the kitchen in a sanitary condition. This dining establishment maintains its culinary workspace in a hygienic state. The soldier's funeral was conducted in a solemn atmosphere. The military servicemen's memorial service took place in a dignified setting. The dentist performed a quick extraction of the cavity. The dental practitioner swiftly removed the decayed tooth. His success story was a stimulation for me. His journey of achievement served as an inspiration to me. A middle school student is not a child, but rather juvenile. An adolescent in secondary education is no longer a child, but a young individual in transition. The opposing player claimed that the referee was unfair. The competitor on the opposing team asserted that the official exhibited bias. Suddenly, there was an offensive smell in the restaurant. Abruptly, a pungent and unpleasant odor permeated the dining area. The cars coming out these days are equipped with cutting-edge technology. Modern automobiles are furnished with state-of-the-art technological advancements. Rain, snow, and hail are all included in precipitation. Atmospheric moisture in the form of rain, snow, and hail constitutes precipitation. King Louis XIV called together all the nobility. Monarch Louis XIV summoned the entirety of the aristocracy. She deplored the death of her close friend. She lamented the passing of her dearest companion. The geologist believed in the continental drift theory. The earth scientists subscribed to the hypothesis of plate tectonics. It is said that there are over 1 trillion stars in the sky. It is estimated that the cosmos contains more than 1 trillion celestial bodies. Carnegie's business philosophy involves interpersonal skills. Carnegie's entrepreneurial doctrine emphasizes social adeptness. A malcontent continues to complain even when treated well. A chronic dissenter persists in expressing dissatisfaction despite fair treatment. He cut his finger on a broken fragment of glass. He lacerated his finger on a shattered shard of glass. He eventually reached the apex of Mount Everest. He ultimately ascended to the pinnacle of Everest. North Korea must renounce its nuclear weapons development. The Democratic People's Republic must forswear its atomic arsenal program. She felt amusement at my light-hearted joke. She experienced delight at my playful remark. The police succeeded in apprehending the criminal. Law enforcement officers effectively detained the perpetrator. He gave up his seat to an elderly gentleman on the bus. He relinquished his place for a senior gentleman while commuting. If you scribble your name, it will be hard for others to read it. If you scrawl your signature, it will hinder legibility for others. The puppy drooled when it smelled something delicious. The young canine salivated upon detecting an appetizing aroma. She asserted that she never committed the theft. She firmly proclaimed her innocence regarding the larceny. Due to road construction, we went on a detour. Because of infrastructure work, we opted for an alternative route. The film critic exalted the movie highly. The cinema analyst lavished praise upon the film. The janitors buried the huge trash in the landfill. The custodians disposed of the massive waste by entering it in a disposal site. He denied being implicated in the crime. He refuted any association with the illicit act. I invoke God's blessing on your efforts. I beseech divine favor upon your endeavors. The greatest enemies of studying are difficulty and dullness. The primary adversaries of learning are complexity and monotony. I glimpsed an old friend while driving. I caught a fleeting sight of a longtime acquaintance during my drive. The reporter was tenacious in searching for an exclusive story. The journalist exhibited relentless determination in uncovering a unique report. I worked as an intern at the district office during the vacation. I gained practical experience as an apprentice at the municipal office over the holiday. His persistent requests always vex me. His unyielding pleas consistently irritate me. She fights with her prodigal husband, who spends excessively on alcohol every day. She quarrels daily with her extravagant spouse, who lavishly squanders money on liquor. Granted, studying is not a fun task, but it must be done. Admittedly, academic pursuits lack amusement, yet they remain imperative. The Archbishop warned of the decadent society's downfall. The high-ranking cleric cautioned against the collapse of a morally declining civilization. The emperor has dominion over the castles. The sovereign exercises absolute authority over the fortresses. The chemist condensed the steam into water in the laboratory. The scientist transformed vapor into liquid within the research facility. The precondition for promotion is foreign language proficiency. The prerequisite for career advancement is linguistic competence. Rude behavior causes antipathy among friends. Discourteous conduct fosters resentment in social circles. The theory of essentially good human nature is called the theory of innate goodness. The philosophical perspective that humans are inherently virtuous is termed the doctrine of innate morality. The soldiers were severely injured in the bomb blast. The military personnel sustained critical wounds due to the explosion. The scientist demonstrated the new theory through an experiment. The researcher validated the novel hypothesis via empirical testing. The passengers gathered toward the fore of the train to avoid the zombies. The commuters clustered at the front section of the locomotive to evade the undead. I drove a wedge into the crack in the stone and split it into pieces. I inserted a wedge into the fissure of the rock, causing it to fracture. The Parliament passed the law with unanimity. The legislative body ratified the statute with complete consensus. The rattlesnake slithered quietly toward its prey. The venomous serpent stealthily advanced toward its unsuspecting target. I felt a sense of alienation from my friend. I experienced a feeling of estrangement from my companion. The audience was moved by his passionate speech. The spectators were deeply stirred by his fervent oration. The rolling stone gained momentum and rolled faster. The moving boulder accumulated velocity and accelerated. Delivery fees in sales are negligible amounts of money. Shipping charges in transactions are insignificant expenses. A sneaky scammer used a clever trick to deceive others. A deceitful fraudster employed an ingenious ruse to mislead individuals. She is a celebrity with natural allure. She is a public figure endowed with innate charm. A typical complication of diabetes is blindness. A common consequence of diabetes is loss of vision. She resented the harsh criticism from the critic. She harbored indignation toward the severe evaluation of the reviewer. My ideal type is an amiable and good-looking man. My preference in a partner is a personable and aesthetically pleasing gentleman. This snake is harmless because it has no venom. This serpent poses no threat as it lacks toxic secretion. This winter is extremely cold due to the chilly air. The frigid atmosphere has rendered this season exceptionally cold. His rude comments rekindled her anger. His impolite remarks reignited her fury. I often visit this restaurant because the prices are reasonable. I frequent this eatery due to its affordable pricing. He invested his money in estate rather than stocks. He allocated his funds toward real estate instead of equities. The road has only one lane, so the traffic is chronically heavy. The thoroughfare is single-laned, resulting in perpetual congestion. Bronze is a metal alloy made from copper and tin. Bronze is a composite metal formed by fusing copper and tin. The crowd demanded that the murderer be executed. The mob insisted on the capital punishment of the assassin. I found a book that is both fun and instructive. I discovered a literary work that is both engaging and educational. He ate grilled shrimp and squid as snacks. He consumed barbecued prawns and calamari as light refreshments. The scientist continued his quest for new knowledge. The researcher persevered in his pursuit of intellectual discovery. The family bemoaned his sudden death. The relatives mourned his unexpected passing with deep sorrow. She enrolled in unemployment training for employment. She registered for vocational training to enhance her job prospects. Paint dissolves well in solvents like gasoline. Pigment readily disperses in chemical solvents such as petrol. The philosopher has a sharp insight into human nature. The thinker possesses profound acumen regarding the essence of humanity. The boss had a meeting with the personnel regarding the salary increase. The executive convened with the staff to discuss wage adjustments. The priest and the nun are conducting a service in the church. The clergyman and the sister are officiating a religious ceremony. I planted trees to prevent desertification. I cultivated vegetation to counteract land degradation. They are twins, but they have no resemblance at all. They are siblings born together, yet they bear no physical similarity. The distributor ordered snacks from the manufacturer. The supplier placed an order for refreshments from the producer. Philosophy is the study of the human mind. The discipline of philosophy explores the nature of thought and existence. The current president has governed the country democratically. The incumbent head of state has administered national affairs with democratic principles. The politician expressed his stance on government policy. The lawmaker articulated his position regarding state regulations. The fortune teller prophesied my fate. The clairvoyant foretold my destiny. My colleague is the best worker at the company. My associate is the most competent employee in the firm. His achievements exceeded our expectations. His accomplishments surpassed our anticipations. The writer knows how to punctuate with periods and commas. The author is proficient in applying punctuation marks correctly. The children caught crayfish and fish in the brook in the forest. The youngsters captured freshwater crustaceans and fish in the woodland stream. I reproached him for his laziness and lack of sincerity. I admonished him for his indolence and insincerity. The Hulk is a mighty giant who can throw cars. The formidable Titan possesses the strength to hurl vehicles effortlessly. The disaster committee organized the emergency rescue team. The crisis management board assembled an urgent relief squad. The meeting of two people at the party that day was fateful. The encounter between the two individuals at the gathering was destined. The Chief of Staff of the Army is the supreme commander of the Army. The head military officer holds the highest authority over the land forces. Before swimming, you should flex your arms and legs thoroughly. Prior to entering the water, one should stretch their limbs extensively. We mistrusted each other due to the theft incident. The larceny case led to mutual distrust between us. The economic growth rate is similar to the government's early projection. The nation's expansion pace aligns closely with the administration's preliminary forecast. The middle school students took a comprehension test in English class. The secondary school learners underwent a reading assessment in their language course. To preserve freshness, the milk was refrigerated. The dairy product was stored at a low temperature to maintain its quality. The prosperity of a nation depends on its economy and politics. The affluence of a country is contingent upon its financial and governmental stability. The librarian at the library lent me a book. The custodian of books provided me with a volume for temporary use. Please call at your convenience. Kindly reach out whenever it suits you best. We preserve cultural heritage for posterity. Cultural legacies are safeguarded for future generations. The prisoner entreated the enemy to release him. The captive pleaded with his adversary for freedom. I felt skepticism about this military operation. I harbored doubts regarding the feasibility of this armed maneuver. His plan has both merits and demerits. His strategy encompasses both advantages and drawbacks. The advantage of this shopping mall is the prompt delivery of goods. The primary benefit of this retail center is its expedited shipment services. Helen had issues with both visual and auditory perception. Helen struggled with impairments in both sight and hearing. After the baby fell, he was whining because he was in pain. Following the infant's fall, he whimpered due to discomfort. Hypertension patients should be cautious about their sodium intake. Individuals with high blood pressure must monitor their salt consumption carefully. Cinderella was treated like an eyesore by her stepmother. Cinderella endured contemptuous treatment from her stepmother. This job requires both mental and physical effort. This occupation demands exertion of both mind and body. The value of peace is understood after experiencing the severity of war. The significance of tranquility becomes apparent after witnessing the devastation of conflict. The pilgrim will visit the shrine in Jerusalem. The devout traveler intends to pay homage at the sacred site in Jerusalem. He suffered after getting plastic surgery from a charlatan doctor. He endured complications following a cosmetic procedure performed by a fraudulent physician. She showed an affirmative response to my proposal. She exhibited a favorable reaction to my suggestion. I hope that Korea's economy will flourish due to oil discoveries. I aspire for South Korea's financial sector to thrive as a result of petroleum findings. A crater formed at the peak of the mountain after the volcanic eruption. A caldera emerged atop the summit following the eruption. She sifted through the dirt for the lost ring. She meticulously searched the soil in pursuit of the misplaced jewelry. The hill is covered with dense vegetation. The slope is blanketed with thick flora. The relief organization gave blankets to the piteous refugees. The humanitarian agency distributed coverings to the destitute evacuees. She barely recollected my name. She scarcely recalled my identity. The unrest in politics leads to unrest in the economy. Political turbulence triggers financial instability. He achieved the accumulation of wealth through the success of his business. He amassed riches via his entrepreneurial triumph. The only thing that can fill the void in the heart is love. Affection is the sole remedy for the emptiness of the soul. A just society must guarantee equality of opportunity. A fair civilization must ensure impartial access to opportunities. He grimaced at the unpleasant and disgusting smell. He contorted his expression in response to the repugnant odor. She acts more mature than her age suggests. She displays a level of wisdom surpassing her chronological age. A long-term recession caused mass unemployment. A prolonged economic downturn resulted in widespread joblessness. The post office stamps a postmark on each letter. The Postal Service imprints a date stamp on every piece of mail. I made a stamp from a tree struck by a thunderbolt. I crafted a seal from wood impacted by a lightning strike. Someone tried to commit suicide on the railing of the Han River Bridge. An individual attempted self-harm on the barrier of the Han River overpass. In the past, the idea that the Earth revolved was a radical concept. Historically, the notion of Earth's rotation was considered a revolutionary theory. The people fought against tyranny and won their freedom. The populace resisted oppression and secured their liberty. We need a new strategy to repel the enemy. A revised tactical approach is essential to fend off the adversary. He hit a home run as the designated hitter. He launched a home run while playing as the assigned batter. The employer pays the monthly salary to the employee. The business owner compensates the worker with a regular paycheck. Smoking is only allowed in the designated compartment. Tobacco consumption is permitted solely in the allocated section. The police succeeded in verifying the criminal's name. Law enforcement successfully authenticated the suspect's identity. The fatalities from this terror attack exceed 50 people. The death toll from this act of terrorism surpasses 50. The famous singer sang in the midst of the crowd. The renowned vocalist performed amid the throng. It costs a huge amount for the transit of oil by ship. The maritime transportation of crude oil incurs substantial expenses. The martyr believes that his death was part of providence. The devotee perceives his demise as a divine decree. The soldier swore implicit loyalty to the nation. The serviceman pledged unwavering allegiance to his country. His unfounded assertion was completely ignored. His baseless claim was utterly disregarded. The police are under scrutiny regarding the accident. Authorities are facing close examination over the incident. The witness heard the screech of the car's brakes. The observer perceived the high-pitched squeal of the vehicle's braking system. I was impatient with the slow bus due to my urgent errand. My pressing task made me restless over the sluggish public transport. This hiking trail next to the cliff is very perilous. This trekking path adjacent to the precipice is highly hazardous. I gave food to the pathetic child who was starving. I provided nourishment to the destitute youngster suffering from hunger. The chemical solutions were unstable, so they were handled with care. The volatile chemical compounds required meticulous handling. The audience was completely captivated by her salsa dance. The spectators were entirely enthralled by her Latin dance performance. I didn't know whether to move the car, so I left the car key at the lodge. Uncertain about relocating the vehicle, I entrusted the ignition key at the inn. His dyed red hair was noticeable. His artificially colored crimson locks were conspicuous. It is said that a ghost haunts the ruined castle. Legend claims that a specter lingers within the abandoned fortress. The sound of the keyboard in the library is irritating. The clicking noise of the keyboard in the reading hall is aggravating. When I travel, I buy local specialties at the souvenir shop. While journeying, I purchase regional delicacies from keepsake stores. The guard took the criminal's frontal and lateral pictures. The officer captured both frontal and profile images of the suspect. I overslept today. Consequently, I was late for school. I slept past my alarm this morning. Hence, I arrived at school tardily. Due to the typhoon, an evacuation order was given to the residents. The hurricane prompted authorities to issue a mass evacuation directive. Firefighters make clothes from resistant materials for fire protection. Emergency responders utilize flame-retardant fabrics for protective gear. I used all kinds of rhetoric to flatter her. I employed various forms of eloquence to ingratiate myself with her. She was concerned about her husband's habitual drinking. She expressed apprehension over her spouse's chronic alcohol consumption. Car exhaust gases pollute the air. Vehicular emissions contaminate the atmosphere. The construction company leveled the uneven, unpaved road. The infrastructure firm smoothed out the rugged dirt path. The package was delivered exactly to the recipient. The parcel was precisely dispatched to the intended addressee. I observed the movement of microbial organisms under the microscope. I examined the locomotion of microscopic entities through magnification. While I was studying, my younger brother kept interrupting me. During my academic session, my little sibling persistently disrupted me. I inquired about the apartment prices from the agent. I sought information regarding housing costs from the real estate representative. Kinetic energy undergoes some dissipation as heat. Motion-induced power experiences partial conversion into thermal energy. She stores fresh fruits and milk in the fridge. She preserves perishable produce and dairy products in the refrigerator. Dragons originally have an attribution to fire. Mythical serpents are traditionally associated with flames. The whole family kept vigil at the father's deathbed. The entire household maintained a solemn watch at the patriarch's final moments. The general bravely stood on the vanguard and fought the enemy. The commander courageously positioned himself at the front line and engaged the foe. His plan is still abstract, not concrete. His strategy remains conceptual rather than well-defined. The spy secretly stole confidential documents from the embassy. The operative discreetly obtained classified files from the diplomatic mission. She gained an immovable confidence after winning. She developed unwavering self-assurance following her victory. A territorial dispute arose between China and Japan. A sovereignty conflict emerged between China and Japan. The wisdom acquired through experience is important. Knowledge obtained via first-hand encounters holds great significance. The criminal pleaded for mercy from the judge. The offender earnestly requested clemency from the magistrate. Superman was born with supernatural strength. Superman possesses extraordinary physical prowess from birth. She uses a rose-scented fragrance shampoo. She applies a floral-infused hair cleanser with a rose essence. I sprayed insecticide in the room to exterminate pests. I dispersed pesticide indoors to eliminate vermin. The tank boasts excellent firepower and mobility. The armored vehicle exhibits superior combat capability and agility. In old age, people long for their childhood. Elderly individuals yearn for the innocence of their youth. My wife suffered from morning sickness during her pregnancy. My spouse experienced nausea as an early pregnancy symptom. An estuary is a wide area where a river meets the sea. A river delta is an expansive zone where fresh water converges with the ocean. The beggar devoured the food left by others. The destitute individual ravenously consumed the remnants of meals. A beauty salon and a store are among the basic amenities. A hairdressing parlor and a retail shop are part of essential facilities. During the rainy season, the weather is erratic, so I carry an umbrella. Throughout the monsoon period, climatic conditions fluctuate unpredictably, prompting me to keep an umbrella handy. Prehistory is history without recorded information. The prehistoric era refers to the time before documented records existed. This vacuum cleaner sucks up dust particles well. This suction device efficiently removes airborne debris. The key factor in his success is his persistent effort. The fundamental element behind his triumph is his unwavering diligence. We were very hospitable to even strangers. We extended warm generosity even to unfamiliar individuals. High buildings have been constructed on the periphery of the amusement park. Tall structures have been erected along the outskirts of the theme park. His theory started from a wrong premise. His hypothesis was founded upon a flawed assumption. The prosecution investigated the government's bureaucrat for corruption. The legal authorities scrutinized the state official for misconduct. Her perfume had an obnoxious smell that made me cover my nose. Her fragrance emitted an overpowering odor that compelled me to shield my nostrils. The baseball player swiped the ball with his bat. The athlete forcefully struck the ball with his bat. It is said that dinosaurs became extinct due to a collision with an asteroid. It is hypothesized that prehistoric reptiles perished following an impact with a celestial body. He is very satisfied with his profession as a doctor. He finds immense fulfillment in his medical career. The sailors escaped the shipwreck on time by using the lifeboats. The mariners successfully evacuated the wrecked vessel in time utilizing lifeboats. Reason and emotion differentiate humans from beasts. Rationality and sentiment distinguish mankind from animals. What he stole is so bad that it is not defensible. His act of theft is utterly indefensible due to its severity. The refugees had to endure the winter rigor without a home. The displaced individuals endured the harsh winter conditions without shelter. Religion tends to forbid pregnant women from aborting. Religious doctrines often prohibit expectant mothers from terminating pregnancies. Excessive dieting can lead to malnutrition. Overindulgence in weight loss regimens may result in nutritional deficiencies. The Parliament ratified the Free Trade Agreement with the United States. The legislative body formally approved the Commerce Treaty with the U.S. Unwary Minsu fell into a puddle while walking down the street. Careless Minsu stumbled into a water-filled ditch while strolling along the road. A cluster of spectators gathered around him. A group of onlookers assembled in his vicinity. In my opinion, his theory of cosmic creation lacks logic. From my perspective, his hypothesis on the origin of the universe is devoid of rational foundation. The eagle snatched the squirrel with its strong claws. The raptor seized the rodent with its formidable talons. Mother's breast milk provides nourishment for the baby. Maternal lactation serves as essential sustenance for the infant. The politician lived in misery in a foreign country. The statesman endured hardship while residing abroad. I published a big book as a format for the elderly. I released a large print edition tailored for senior readers. He went bankrupt after being deceived by fraudulent information in the stock market. He fell into financial ruin after being misled by deceptive stock market data. An adverb is a modifier that describes adjectives and verbs. An adverb functions as a linguistic element that modifies adjectives and actions. Arthur was appointed as an absolute monarch by the nobility. Arthur was designated as a sovereign ruler by the aristocracy. Bill Gates spontaneously donated all of his wealth. Bill Gates voluntarily contributed his entire fortune. Everyone commended him for his donation. He received universal praise for his charitable contribution. The old man enlarged small text with his magnifying glass. The elderly gentleman magnified fine print using his optical lens. Prior approval is required to enter the party. Authorization in advance is necessary for event admission. He lost his passport and found himself in a plight at the airport. Losing his travel document, he faced a dire predicament at the terminal. Over the years, the cathedral was eroded by wind and rain. With time, the grand church deteriorated due to exposure to natural elements. He said hopelessly that there was no hope left. He despairingly uttered that all optimism had vanished. She is responsible for the household economy. She oversees the financial management of the home. Dad and Mom worked hard for the family's bliss. The parents diligently labored to ensure familial happiness. I went to a meeting instead of enjoying living solitude. Rather than relishing isolation, I attended a conference. Social media is often used to quickly diffuse rumors. Digital platforms frequently serve as channels for the rapid dissemination of gossip. The revolt in the streets was soon suppressed by the army. The civil uprising was swiftly quelled by military intervention. She boasts about her marathon victory. She proudly proclaims her triumph in the endurance race. I was terribly sorry for causing the inconvenience. I deeply regretted being the source of disruption. The rock climber secured a foothold on the cliff. The mountaineer firmly established a stable grip on the precipice. The huge passenger ship cruised along the coastline. The massive ocean liner navigated smoothly along the shore. He took a judicious approach to his new business. He adopted a prudent strategy for his entrepreneurial endeavor. The Pope ordained him as the next cardinal. The pontiff officially anointed him as the succeeding cardinal. The Parliament legislated a law banning drunk driving. The legislative body enacted a statute prohibiting intoxicated driving. He has the competence of a leader. He possesses the aptitude required for effective leadership. This watch is famous for being remarkably accurate. This timepiece is renowned for its exceptional precision. He accumulated his wealth through real estate investments. He amassed his fortune via property acquisitions. Their opinions became convergent after the discussion. Their perspectives aligned following the deliberation. I provided simple refreshments for the guests. I offered light refreshments to accommodate my visitors. A periodic inspection is conducted for the water purifier. Routine evaluations are performed to ensure the purifier's functionality. He was a nominal emperor with no real power. He served as a figurehead monarch devoid of actual authority. Fireflies are luminescent creatures at night. Glowworms are bioluminescent organisms active in darkness. The Duke of Kent and the Duchess came to meet the King and Queen. The noble Duke and his Duchess arrived for an audience with the sovereigns. Objects come to a stop due to friction between them. Items decelerate and cease motion as a result of surface resistance. We have prejudices against black people. Racial biases persist against people of African descent. The local government oversaw the presidential election fairly. The regional administration supervised the national election with impartiality. The library was noiseless with students studying. The reading hall remained silent as scholars engaged in their studies. The graduation certificate is issued through a straightforward procedure. The diploma is granted via a simple and direct process. His self-righteous behavior alienated his followers. His sanctimonious attitude estranged those who once supported him. The veterinarian has an affinity for pets. The animal doctor harbors a deep fondness for domesticated creatures. A foreigner worked at the factory as an industry trainee. An expatriate was employed in the manufacturing plant as an apprentice. This academy is registered as an institution of education. This educational center is officially recognized as a learning institution. She prepared the contract documents in triplicate. She drafted 3 identical copies of the contractual agreement. Last night's heavy snow intensified the traffic congestion. The previous night's blizzard exacerbated road congestion. Along with the eruption of the volcano, lava shot up into the sky. The volcanic outburst propelled molten rock high into the atmosphere. The new student's assimilation into our group was quick. The newcomer integrated smoothly into our social circle. We held a reception for the new members. A welcoming ceremony was organized for the recent inductees. The squad leader ordered the sergeant to cease fire. The unit commander instructed the subordinate officer to halt gunfire. He used his stuttering shortcoming as a strength. He transformed his speech impediment into an advantage. The psychologist studied the criminal's behavior mode. The behavioral expert analyzed the offender's conduct patterns. He is an artist who specializes in drawing the portraits of businessmen. He is a portraitist renowned for depicting corporate figures. We found survivors in the collapsed brick stack. Rescuers discovered individuals alive beneath the rubble. When the dog saw its owner, it wagged its tail forth and back. The canine enthusiastically swayed its tail upon recognizing its master. The pine tree grew in the interstice between the rocks. The conifer sprouted in the narrow crevice among the stones. The prosecutor presented cogent evidence in court. The district attorney submitted compelling proof during the trial. His passionate speech mollified the angry crowd. His fervent address pacified the agitated assembly. She filled the basin with water to wash her hair. She poured water into the wash bowl to cleanse her hair. He submitted his resignation letter to the HR department. He tendered his notice of departure to the Human Resources Division. I reviewed and revised the draft of the contract. I scrutinized and amended the preliminary agreement. The life of luxury and luxurious goods corrupts young people. A lavish lifestyle and opulent possessions degrade the morality of youth. The terrorist attacked the mainland of the United States with a suicide attack. The extremist launched a self-destructive assault on U.S. soil. The singer is called the forerunner of modern pop music. The vocalist is regarded as a pioneer in contemporary pop culture. She has a phobia of high places. She suffers from acrophobia, an intense fear of heights. The aviation industry also includes airplane manufacturing. The aeronautics sector encompasses aircraft production as well. The thug threatened the citizens with an intimidating attitude. The ruffian menaced the locals with a domineering demeanor. I took painkillers for my unbearable headache. I consumed analgesics to alleviate my excruciating migraine. The patient in the emergency room suddenly became unconscious. The individual in critical care abruptly lost consciousness. He learned martial arts like Kung Fu at the dojo. He trained in disciplines such as Kung Fu at a martial arts academy. She gave a presentation of the new product to the customers. She delivered a demonstration of the latest merchandise to the clientele. He whispered something in her ear in a small voice, saying murmur. He muttered softly into her ear in a hushed tone. His diligence is always consistent in consistency. His perseverance remains unwavering and steadfast. The effectiveness of the drug is told by those who have used it. The potency of the medication is attested by its users. His stock investment eventually led to bankruptcy, culminating in failure. His financial speculation resulted in insolvency, marking ultimate ruin. The enemy encroached on the adjacent territory without permission. The adversary unlawfully infringed upon the neighboring land. He wore a neck brace after injuring his neck in a car accident. He donned a cervical collar following a vehicular mishap. I expressed my condolences to the family at the funeral. I conveyed my sympathies to the bereaved relatives during the memorial service. Insects are observed under a microscope with magnification. Arthropods are examined microscopically using high magnification. The fire truck arrived at the scene of the fire promptly within 5 minutes. The emergency vehicle reached the blaze site expeditiously in under 5 minutes. The prosecution identified the suspect's whereabouts through CCTV. The legal authorities traced the perpetrator's location via surveillance footage. The chef made well-being food with wholesome ingredients. The culinary expert prepared nutritious cuisine using organic components. This wildfire was a natural combustion caused by the wind. This forest blaze resulted from spontaneous ignition due to strong winds. Solidification is the process by which a liquid turns into a solid. The phase transition of solidification occurs when a fluid hardens. We have an ideological identity that stems from capitalism. Our ideological framework originates from a capitalistic foundation. The singer donated all the proceeds from this performance. The vocalist contributed the entire revenue from the event to charity. I couldn't save money because I was wasteful with my clothes. My extravagant spending on apparel prevented me from accumulating savings. Cells receive nutrients through the membrane. Cellular structures absorb essential nutrients via their semi-permeable membrane. You should not fall into the temptation of smoking and gambling. One must resist the allure of tobacco consumption and wagering. The two countries at war finally signed a truce. The warring nations ultimately agreed upon a ceasefire. He complained about being treated unfairly at work. He voiced grievances regarding inequitable treatment in his workplace. That couple was destined to break up from the beginning. That pair was fated to separate from the outset. The villagers flung stones at the terrifying monster. The rural dwellers hurled rocks at the dreadful beast. Bees need to pollinate the apple blossoms for the fruit to grow. Apian activity is essential for fertilizing apple blooms to yield fruit. He outdid his opponent in boxing with strength and skill. He overpowered his adversary in the ring through sheer power and technique. He felt ecstasy from the majestic view of Mount Baekdu. He experienced euphoria upon witnessing the grandeur of Mount Baekdu. The driver used an alternate system to operate the vehicle. The motorist activated a backup mechanism to control the automobile. Throwing a stone into the calm lake caused a ripple. Tossing a pebble into the tranquil pond generated gentle waves. His books were favorably reviewed by the readers. His literary works received positive acclaim from the audience. My son received the measles vaccine at the pediatrician. My child was administered an immunization against measles at the children's clinic. I worked hard to escape poverty and became wealthy. Through diligence and perseverance, I transcended destitution and attained affluence. He derives pleasure and knowledge from reading. He extracts both intellectual enrichment and enjoyment from literature. He installed an alarm to alert for intrusion. He set up a security system to warn against unauthorized entry. He is kind, but he becomes very stern when it comes to mistakes. He is compassionate, yet he adopts a strict demeanor regarding errors. The construction worker flattened the road with a bulldozer. The laborer leveled the pathway using heavy machinery. The azalea flower poetry encapsulates the pain of separation. The poem about azaleas conveys the sorrow of parting. She spoke in the National Assembly as a delegate of the opposition party. She addressed the legislature as a representative of the rival political faction. The Youth Training Center expanded facilities like the basketball court. The Adolescent Activity Hub enhanced amenities, including a sports court. My parents registered my birth at the community center. My guardians officially recorded my birth at the local office. Ducks have flippers on their feet, making it easy to swim. Waterfowl possess webbed feet, facilitating effortless swimming. The architect built the tallest building in Seoul. The designer constructed the highest skyscraper in the capital. I met a fascinating woman at the graduation party. I encountered an intriguing lady during the commencement celebration. The soccer ball sadly hit the goalpost and rebounded. The football unfortunately struck the post and deflected away. Romeo and Juliet ended with a catastrophic conclusion. The tale of Romeo and Juliet culminated in a tragic finale. I received a preliminary estimate for the remodeling. I obtained an initial appraisal for the renovation project. She is a distinguished scholar in the field of archaeology. She is a renowned expert in the domain of ancient studies. The potter hardened the pottery several times with heat and wind. The ceramic artist repeatedly fired the clay using heat and airflow. The fundamental problem of delinquent teenagers is the lack of affection. The core issue among troubled adolescents stems from emotional neglect. This herb has an amazing efficacy for insomnia. This medicinal plant exhibits remarkable effectiveness in treating sleep disorders. The illusionist performed magic in front of the audience. The magician showcased his sleight of hand before the spectators. The instructor handed out an overview of today's lecture in advance. The educator distributed a summary of the lesson beforehand. The religious person sincerely adores Buddha and Jesus. The devout believer deeply reveres both Buddha and Christ. My attic is small, but it gets sunlight and is airy. My loft is compact, yet it receives ample daylight and remains well ventilated. He confessed to the theft charge with evident proof. He admitted to the larceny accusation with irrefutable evidence. She has a diffident and introverted personality. She possesses a reserved and introspective disposition. I inflated many balloons for the party. I filled numerous balloons with air in preparation for the celebration. The civic group advocated for the preservation of historic buildings. The public organization championed the conservation of architectural heritage. The scholar was banished to the countryside for his mistake. The intellectual was exiled to a rural area due to his misjudgment. He always grunts that he has too much work to do. He constantly mutters complaints about his excessive workload. If he were sane, he wouldn't have lied to me. Had he been of sound mind, he would not have deceived me. After saying goodbye, she went in the opposite direction without a word. After bidding farewell, she silently walked away in the reverse direction. The prisoner exchange operation was virtually impossible, they said. They claimed that the detainee swap mission was practically unfeasible. She had an aversion to keeping snakes at home. She harbored a deep repulsion toward housing reptiles indoors. He was born into a humble family and succeeded with dignity. He emerged from a modest background and achieved success with grace. A 50% discount was applicable only for clearance items. The half-price promotion was valid solely for liquidation products. The Apollo spacecraft embodied the dream of space exploration. The Apollo shuttle symbolized humanity's aspiration for cosmic discovery. The athlete overcame pain with his willpower. The sportsman conquered agony through sheer determination. I ordered the necessary furnishing for the office online. I procured essential office furniture via an e-commerce platform. My boss praised my drastic drive to move forward. My superior commended my relentless ambition for progress. The criminal could not escape the observant eyes of the police. The offender failed to evade the keen scrutiny of law enforcement. He planted a monumental tree in the garden of the Blue House. He cultivated a symbolic tree in the courtyard of the presidential residence. Our company restricts the use of disposable cups. Our corporation enforces limitations on single-use beverage containers. He felt deep remorse for his mistake. He harbored profound regret over his error. I reduced production costs to maximize profits. I minimized manufacturing expenses to optimize revenue. He is busy with preparation for the final exam. He is occupied with studying for his concluding assessment. The landlord retrieved the stolen Goryeo celadon. The property owner reclaimed the pilfered Goryeo porcelain. He is experiencing financial difficulties due to his business failure. He is undergoing monetary struggles as a consequence of his entrepreneurial collapse. Seeing the ghost, she felt like she was literally out of breath. Upon witnessing the specter, she felt as though she were gasping for air. The curry chips had a savor similar to real curry. The curry-flavored crisps possessed a taste reminiscent of authentic curry. Personal activities are prohibited during the new employee training session. Individual engagements are restricted throughout the onboarding program. I am ashamed of my folly in trying to deceive my friend. I feel mortified by my foolish attempt at deception. The actors began acting at the director's cue. The performers initiated their roles upon the director's signal. After graduation from college, I went to graduate school. Following my undergraduate completion, I pursued postgraduate studies. Her face shape is closer to an ellipse than a circle. The contour of her face resembles an oval more than a round shape. The revolting smell made everyone cover their noses with their hands. The repugnant odor compelled everyone to shield their nostrils with their palms. The soldier tugged at the reins to stop the tank. The serviceman pulled firmly on the controls to halt the armored vehicle. I took supplements to restore my physical strength. I consumed dietary enhancements to regain my bodily endurance. His argument has coherence from beginning to end. His reasoning maintains logical consistency throughout. Her gestures are full of vitality and passion. Her movements exude liveliness and fervor. He must have exhausted his energy as he collapsed after the soccer game. He likely depleted his stamina, for he fainted following the football match. We guess the meaning of new words through context. We infer the definition of unfamiliar vocabulary from surrounding text. The air is thin at the mountain summit, making it hard to respire. The atmosphere is rarefied at the peak, causing difficulty in breathing. The family of soccer player Cha Bum-kun has excellent athletic abilities. The relatives of footballer Cha Bum-kun possess outstanding physical prowess. The lawyer knows the loopholes in the law and exploits them well. The attorney is adept at identifying and leveraging legal technicalities. Samsung provided a warranty that vouched for the product quality. Samsung issued a guarantee certifying the reliability of the merchandise. Our country's archers have exceptional talent in archery. The marksmen of our nation exhibit extraordinary proficiency in bowmanship. The local thug was almost the incarnate of a demon. The neighborhood ruffian seemed like the embodiment of malevolence. We measured the velocity of the KTX train. The speed of the KTX locomotive was calculated with precision. The saying, "go around when in a hurry," is a famous paradox. The proverb, "haste makes waste," exemplifies a well-known contradiction. The sudden super-strong tornado overturned the bus. The abrupt and ferocious twister capsized the vehicle. I'm awfully sorry for interrupting your precious time. I deeply regret disrupting your valuable schedule. The cardinal granted absolution for his theft. The high priest bestowed forgiveness for his transgression. The weightlifter easily heaved the barbell and dumbbells. The powerlifter effortlessly hoisted both the barbell and free weights. He posted the promotion notice on the company bulletin board with a tack. He affixed the advertisement to the corporate notice board using a pin. The unmanned spacecraft flew into space. The autonomous shuttle ascended into the cosmos. The museum worked hard on the restoration of the damaged artifacts. The cultural institution diligently pursued the preservation of historical relics. The new drug caused a pernicious side effect of stomach ulcers. The recently developed medication induced a harmful adverse reaction, leading to gastric ulcers. BC refers to the history antecedent to the birth of Jesus. The term BC denotes the chronological period preceding Christ's nativity. I often misplace my glasses and lose them. I frequently mislay my spectacles and inadvertently forfeit them. We need to strengthen national defense against invasion. Reinforcing the country's military preparedness is essential to deter aggression. She was elected as the first female president, inaugurated into office. She was chosen as the nation's pioneering woman leader and formally sworn in. He is a dull young man, completely devoid of humor. He is an uninteresting youth, utterly lacking wit and amusement. The sculptor sculpted a mermaid from marble. The artisan meticulously carved a siren out of solid marble. He wasn't fooled by the cliché of shouting fire. He remained skeptical of the hackneyed ruse involving a false fire alarm. Materialism leads adolescents to become degenerate. Excessive consumerism drives young individuals toward moral decline. The wallpaperer applied paste evenly on the wallpaper. The decorator smoothly spread adhesive across the entire wallpaper surface. Sending a gift? Definitely. He likes her. By presenting a gift, he unmistakably demonstrates his affection for her. Mold proliferates quickly in a humid environment. Fungi spread rapidly under conditions of high moisture. The police believed the two murders were related. Law enforcement suspected a connection between the homicides. Her innermost feeling toward him is love. Her deepest emotion for him is unreserved affection. The military disbanded the demonstration by force. The armed forces forcibly suppressed the protest. I devised a way to involve her in the plan. I formulated a strategy to integrate her into the scheme. She is meticulous and has a tendency to pursue perfection. She is highly detail-oriented and exhibits a perfectionist inclination. It is still unknown who will achieve the ultimate victory in this match. The final champion of this contest remains undetermined. He, being severely obese, underwent surgery to subdue his appetite. Due to extreme obesity, he opted for an operation to regulate his hunger. No one can succeed without toil in both work and study. Success in academics and career endeavors is unattainable without diligence. She regretted her impulsive decision at that time. She felt remorse for her hasty decision made at that moment. The detective disguised himself with fake glasses and a mustache. The investigator masked his identity with counterfeit spectacles and a fake mustache. To uproot bad habits, you really need determination. To eradicate poor habits, unwavering resolve is absolutely essential. The Song volunteer group visited the nursing home of the elderly. The choir volunteer team paid a visit to the retirement home for seniors. My proposal passed with unanimous consent from the members. My suggestion was approved by the unanimous agreement of the members. A magnitude 8 earthquake just occurred in Japan. A seismic tremor of magnitude 8 struck Japan recently. He implored the victim for forgiveness. He earnestly begged the victim for clemency. Middle school students collectively went on a field trip to Jeongju. The junior high schoolers went together on an educational excursion to Jeongju. I read the introductory passage as soon as I bought the novel. I quickly read the preface upon purchasing the novel. Jupiter is the planet between Mars and Saturn. Jupiter is the gas giant situated between Mars and Saturn in the solar system. The coach gave the players words of encouragement. The coach offered words of motivation to the team members. The refugees were slightly subsidized by the government. The displaced persons received minimal financial aid from the government. I had no intention to disturb you while you were studying. I had no desire to interrupt you while you were immersed in your studies. He is a prescient person who predicted the nation's downfall. He is an insightful individual who foresaw the collapse of the nation. Hyundai Motors' component industry has been flourishing. Hyundai Motors' parts manufacturing sector has been thriving. The baby lamb walked lame after falling from the cliff. The newborn lamb limped after tumbling off the precipice. The cars whizzed frighteningly on the highway. The vehicles zoomed past at alarming speeds on the expressway. The wealthy people lived a lavish lifestyle in their luxurious homes. The affluent individuals indulged in extravagant living within their opulent residences. Further arguments will only amplify misunderstandings. Further disputes will merely magnify existing misconceptions. Emperor Qin Shi Huang sought medicine for everlasting life. Emperor Qin Shi Huang searched for a potion of immortality. Poor posture causes deformation of the spine. Improper posture leads to spinal distortion. The Snow White prince wanted to see Snow White singularly. The Prince of Snow White sought to meet her alone. I bought used items for cost reduction. I purchased second-hand goods to minimize expenses. He humiliated his friend in front of others. He degraded his friend publicly, humiliating him in front of others. The unconscious patient was fortunately conscious again. The comatose patient fortunately regained consciousness. He won the game with various maneuvers. He triumphed in the game using a variety of tactical maneuvers. The cars were substantially damaged in the head-on collision. The vehicles were significantly impaired in the frontal crash. The results of the experiment ended up negating his theory. The findings of the experiment ultimately disproved his hypothesis. I immersed the white cloth in a bucket filled with yellow dye. I submerged the white fabric in a bucket of yellow dye. Hansel escaped to avoid the witch's mistreatment. Hansel fled to evade the sorceress's cruelty. He was acquitted in the Supreme Court for the murder charge. He was cleared of the murder charge by the Supreme Court. The company introduced robots to improve productivity. The corporation implemented robotics to enhance operational efficiency. The referee made a disinterested decision. The umpire rendered an impartial judgment. I had an objection to him becoming the chairman due to his insincerity. I opposed his appointment as chairman because of his lack of sincerity. The immigrants reclaimed the wasteland for farming. The migrants rehabilitated the barren land for agricultural use. She was so oblivious to the crowd that she was fully focused on her performance. She was so absorbed in her performance that the surrounding crowd went unnoticed. Due to the recent deportation measures, the number of illegal immigrants dwindled. The recent deportation policies led to a reduction in the number of illegal migrants. Hitler, the dictator, made plans for conquest of the world. Hitler, the tyrant, devised strategies for global domination. We determined the presentation order by drawing lots. We decided the sequence of presentations through a lottery. She has an extroverted and cheerful personality. She has a sociable and upbeat disposition. I woke up from a horrible nightmare in the middle of my sleep. I awoke from a terrifying nightmare in the midst of my sleep. She emphasized important words with an underscore. She highlighted key words by underlining them. The soaring oil prices became a hindrance to economic recovery. The skyrocketing oil prices obstructed economic recovery. The person who bought the house paid a penalty for the cancellation of the contract. The individual who purchased the house incurred a penalty due to the contract cancellation. Astronomy studies the creation and destruction of cosmic phenomena. Astronomy examines the formation and dissolution of cosmic events. I photocopied documents for the thesis review. I made photocopies of documents for the dissertation evaluation. The players rowed the canoe with their oars in sync with the chant. The athletes paddled the canoe, synchronizing their strokes with the chant. The mechanic applied grease to the bicycle chain. The technician lubricated the bicycle chain with grease. Relief supplies were delivered to the evacuees in the shelter. Emergency supplies were distributed to the evacuees in the refuge. Things were hard to find in the somber basement. Objects were difficult to locate in the dimly lit basement. I used every imaginable method to persuade him. I employed every conceivable technique to convince him. He bought real estate such as land or apartments. He purchased properties like land and apartments. Meals help remove awkwardness and build intimacy. Sharing meals fosters connection and alleviates awkwardness. I feel no sympathy for criminals. I have no compassion for wrongdoers. Instead of blindly criticizing, she made a logical argument. Rather than criticizing mindlessly, she presented a reasoned argument. The principal slightly relaxed the strict discipline rules. The headmaster eased the stringent disciplinary rules. A weak electrical stimulus reduces pain. A mild electrical impulse alleviates pain. The wealth gap can constitute a social problem. The disparity in wealth can become a significant social issue. He recalled the agonizing training after winning. He remembered the excruciating training that followed his victory. She stood in line behind a long queue to buy a ticket. She waited in line behind a lengthy queue to purchase a ticket. The timber cabin is very vulnerable to fire. The wooden cabin is highly susceptible to fire hazards. I covered my nose because of the foul smell from the sewer. I covered my nose due to the putrid odor emanating from the drain. The stingy grandfather was stingy about donations. The miserly grandfather was reluctant to contribute to charity. The committee disqualified the player for drug abuse. The panel disqualified the athlete due to substance abuse. He contracted a contagious disease from someone else. He caught a communicable illness from another person. She was my lifelong friend and mentor. She was both my lifelong companion and guide.